Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode number 28. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us on this Monday, Dave. And we thought and hoped it'd be a victory Monday. It is not. And all throughout the week, especially on Friday's show, Dave, I know we talked about that this was not a must-win against the Bengals, but certainly would be a win you would love to have. And you hate to see what happens if this team dropped to 1-2. And so now we're going to find out what happens with this team sitting at 1-2, losing to the Bengals on Sunday, 24-10. An ugly display across the board, offense, defense, and special teams. If you're looking for a lot of optimism today, probably not the place to come find it, because we're going to be, I think, just brutally honest about what happened yesterday.
Come on, we got to give them something positive to start the show off, because it's going to go downhill.
Positive, we're going to be negative today.
There you go. Exactly. There you go. Someone emailed last night, said looking forward to the Monday podcast for us talking them off the ledge. Go ahead and jump now. Yeah, I don't know where you want to start on it. I think the first and foremost thing is this team is 1-2. They are probably a good block punt away from being 0-3. And they will open week 4 in the cellar of the AFC North. And after 2 back-to-back losses at Heinz Field, they will head to Green Bay to play the Packers at Lambeau Field Sunday afternoon. And most people should be able to get to see that one. I think that one's going to be a national game on CBS, because I think Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, and Tracy Wolfson will be calling that one for us. And hopefully it goes any better than the game that was broadcast on CBS at Heinz Field against the Bengals on Sunday. Where would you like to begin, sir?
Yeah, before we get into the particulars of the disaster that was yesterday's performance, let's talk about everything leading up to it from an injury report standpoint going into the game, and then touch on the injury report coming out of that game as well. I think by Friday, actually it was right after Friday's show, we got news that Deontay Johnson was not going to play, Alex Highsmith was not going to play, Carlos Davis was not going to play, so those were not big surprises, but still confirmation nonetheless. The big one was on Saturday afternoon. The team downgraded T.J. Watt from questionable to out. So the Steelers were without both of their starting outside linebackers in this game, had to call up Derek Tuska, also called up wide receiver Cody White. Both guys dressed and played in Sunday's loss. And then coming out of that game, the Steelers had some injuries, primarily on offense. 2 offensive linemen, Chukwuma Okorafor with a concussion, Kendrick Green with a knee injury that seemed like he was trying to play through that in the second half before his knee gave out, and Juju Smith-Schuster with a rib injury. Mike Tomlin will give updates on those guys tomorrow, I assume. But the Steelers, in addition to the loss, also now have a mounting injury report to deal with.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what when you have a guy like Juju not be able to return. That kind of was midway through the third quarter there, and for him to go out and not return, you have to kind of worry a little bit about that. I tried to find some semblance of a Kendrick Green knee injury thing. It looked like the actual play that he went down on, maybe he banged knees with another player, but it's so hard to tell on the TV tape because he goes down, then the camera goes the opposite direction there. So
he was limping earlier in that game. I saw him limping at one point in the huddle. Yeah. So who knows though?
Right. More than anything, he was able to get off under his own power, I think. So I would take that as a good sign there. But yeah, look, this team already beat up, and is it okay for a man to pray for another man's groin?
At this point, I'll take it.
Okay. I'm praying for Alex Highsmith's groin and T.J. Watt's groin. I would like to form some sort of a prayer club this week for those two guys to come back. But because, oh boy, did they really miss those two. And that's a Captain Obvious thing there. You know, will they miss Kendrick Green if he misses time? We'll have to see what more of the all 22 says on the game from yesterday. But I'll tell you what, it was an ugly game from the offensive line all the way around. But really, the two rookies, Dan Moore Jr. and Kendrick Green, I thought especially struggled in that game there. And Chikwama Okorafor didn't have a good game, and he went out with a concussion. So going to assume that he's going to be in protocol to start the week. And Joe Hague really didn't look, with what they asked Joe Hague to do when he came in for whatever amount of snaps that was, 30-something, 20, whatever it was, didn't look all that great on top of it there. So offensive line woes continue. But here's to, once again, guys like T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith being healthy enough to play against the Packers, because if they don't, this defense is already going to be tested anyway with Aaron Rodgers and company. It's going to be even worse if they don't have a pass rush like they didn't have on Sunday against the Bengals.
Yeah, really felt their absence yesterday. No quarterback hits, no sacks, breaks the Steelers' regular season sack streak of 75 straight games. It had been 1,800 days to the day since the Steelers last played a game in which they did not record a sack, 2016 against the Patriots. That streak ended against the Bengals yesterday, although the Bengals barely had to throw the football. So, it's not a surprise to see that sack streak come to an end. Yeah, Joe Hague replacing Okorafor at right tackle, and J.C. Hassenauer replacing Kendrick Green at center. Juju, I think, got hurt on that hit. He took over the middle of the field, that little slant route. They've been kind of do that semi-hospital ball. And Chase Claypool, by the way, was getting looked at by trainers throughout the game. He was in and out in the second half, and so that led the team to basically have just a couple of healthy receivers to finish that one out.
Yeah, I think it's mostly cramps, maybe with him. At least I hope. That's my Twitter doctor diagnosis there. So take that for what it is.
All right, Dave. Let's talk about this game. And just an ugly game all around: offense, defense, special teams. Which side of the ball do you want to start on?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna. Let's start with the defense here, because I probably have more to say about the offense. But defensively, of course, this team was not very good either. It starts with a pass rush. And again, when you don't have T.J. Watt, you don't have Alex Highsmith, you don't have Tyson Alu obviously been without Stephon Tuitt this entire time. Your pass rush is now in the hands of Jameer Jones and Derek Tuska and Isaiah Buggs and Henry Mondeau and guys like that. And it certainly showed. No pressure at all on Joe Burrow. I think officially, I have a couple of pressures now in my charting, but far below where this team is usually at. Blitzed a little bit more, try to be creative with it, but Joe Burrow had clean pockets all day, especially on some of those touchdowns. I think that second touchdown to Jamar Chase, just all day in that pocket, as clean of a pocket as you'll ever see for a quarterback, and that was the big story there, was just not creating those pressure impacted plays for the most part against the Bengals.
Yeah, they only had, nine third down opportunities in the game. They converted on 3 of them. I think one of them was a touchdown to Boyd, if I'm not mistaken, and another one was a short one to short 3rd and 3 or whatever conversion to Evans on that kind of a running back out there out wide in a bunch formation there. And here's the I shouldn't say funny thing, but when you look at their possession chart overall, of their, what do they have, like 12 or 13 possessions overall, only 2 of them were more than 4 plays in length. Only 2 of them. The 6-play touchdown drive after the first interception, that was once again over 4 plays, and then a 10-play drive to start off the second half that ended in a field goal there. So those were the only possessions they had more than 4 plays. Now, obviously, they had a end of the half kneel down, I think, there, and then they had an end of a game kneel down session as well too. So you can probably throw out those 2 possessions of not officially counting there, but they didn't run a lot of plays overall, but they when they did possess the football, they did when it counted, they made plays the most, I guess, is what I'm getting at here. And especially, look, we talked about how you got to keep a lid on this thing. It was one of my keys of the game. I know it was one of yours as well, too, especially coming out of the game against the Raiders there, where you get one thrown over your head there. They absolutely had to keep, and you're playing a quarterback that really through his rookie season wasn't great with the deep ball. Now, he had connected on a couple of deep balls in the first 2 games this season, both, two of those, I think, to Jamar Chase on deep plays and touchdowns at that. And then what did they end up giving up against the Bengals on Sunday? They gave up a deep play over the head touchdown to Jamar Chase. And, bad enough to get beat over your head like that and deep like that, but it's even worse when that play's on tape twice ending up as a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's not
and
like
you had just tied the game up too. You just finally gotten some stuff in your favor.
Right. I mean, there's not a lot of tape on these guys, obviously through heading into this game with just 2 regular season games, but that is on tape. So, I mean, same, it's just going the other direction and really looked like the same formation. And at least the one against the Vikings looked to be the same formation and really the same route concepts there. And you let a guy like Chase just run right by James Pierre, and you're in a situation there where it's an end of half situation too. There's not much time on, well, there was enough time on the clock, but I mean, man, just keep everything underneath. Don't get beat over the head. And at worst, maybe you give up a field goal here, and then you go in, you regroup, and, it's probably more than likely 7-7 at halftime, right? Instead of what it was. And, if you want a big red, your first big red circle in this thing, it's probably that end of half touchdown right there.
Yeah, I would say it's the end of half touchdown and then the ensuing long drive allowed coming out of the third quarter, which made it a 17-7 game. So by the time the Steelers got the ball back after they tied it up at 7, aside from the end of the half that Pittsburgh got after the Chase touchdown, it was 17-7 essentially. So you went from tying the game to basically a 2-score game in short order on 2 possessions for the Bengals, which is just certainly not what you're looking for from the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And so I think that was the most significant portion of the game to me. But it goes back to that lack of pass rush. It goes back to the run defense not being as strong as it usually was. And you're right, the Bengals didn't have to do a whole lot. They ran 42 offensive plays, 39 if you discount the 3 kneel downs they had. That is the fewest plays run against Pittsburgh in a win by the opponent since 2003 by the Titans when they ran 39. So the Bengals simply did not have to possess the football much to win this game. Usually, if you're a team like Pittsburgh and you run almost double the amount of plays in 35 minutes time of possession and things like that, you're going to win that game. But obviously Pittsburgh did not. So that's the most standout thing to me, is the fact that Bengals barely had to have the football and still comfortably won this game.
We talked about before this, and it was one of my keys too. And you look at it just from a title standpoint, it looks, what kind of key is that? But run more plays was one of the keys. Well, they did, and they ran it by 35 more plays than the Bengals did. They even won the Tox battle too, which, hooray. They won that by 1. They limited the Bengals to 2 explosive plays. Now, I don't know what how you want to tabulate the personal foul by Ingram. I guess that was only a 15-yard gain there, so not technically an explosive play. But the Bengals had just 2 explosive plays on the day. The Steelers, I think, had 4, and the Bengals obviously won the turnover battle 2-1. But all in all, the Steelers won the Tox battle 5-4. They possessed the football 35 more plays than the Bengals did. And you look at kind of the rawness of that box score alone, you think, I bet things probably went pretty well for the Steelers. Or at worst, they didn't lose by 14. And so I mean, they ran more plays, but the Bengals really took more advantage of possession of the football, as you said, especially there the end of the half, and then turning around and getting the score coming out at halftime with a 10-play drive that that's 10 points right there.
I believe on the next possession, the Bengals had two. Correct me if I'm wrong. They went down the field and scored again on the second touchdown to Jamar Chase, which made it 24-7. So it just bang, bang, bang. 3 possessions. Was that 17 points, and it goes from 7-7 to 24-7, and the game kind of feels over. So to talk about some of the plays specifically. The first touchdown, Tyler Boyd, Joe Burrow, third down play, running a little option route, a little pivot route there by Boyd. He makes the catch, picks up the conversion on Devin Bush. No surprise there. But then it's everything after that play, where it's Melvin Ingram trying to go for the big hit, the knockout blow. He falls off. No one else rallies and tackles, and Boyd gets a bunch of yak into the end zone. I mean, that's just, you give up the conversion. Fine, I get that. You could still have blades of grass to defend, but to allow the missed tackle and then the yak and the touchdown is an absolute backbreaker.
Yeah, when look, are they going to come away with points there in that situation? Probably, but you got to defend. You got to have some blades of grass to defend there. And from where Boyd caught that ball, if you look at the still shot with the 3 bodies around him, those 3 bodies being Ingram, Bush, and I think Minka was coming up in there. Minka and Bush kind of went by the side. I guess they were that confident that there was a hit coming from Melvin Ingram there, and didn't wrap up, lowered the shoulder, thought he was going to knock him off his feet that way, and you turn around and Boyd's in the end zone there. So huge early play in that game that results in a touchdown for the Bengals there, and yeah, I mean, you're right. There are other points that came after that field goal. Obviously, came on the Ben Roethlisberger second interception, a short field situation there, and no pressure, and Burrow or you have Jamar Chase just running right away from Joe Hayden in the back of the end zone. Easy pitch and catch.
And I would say overall, because as we mentioned already several times, and I'm sure we and others will do so throughout the next couple of days, the lack of pass rush was obvious and evident in this game. One thing I'll say, the Steelers really did poorly to hurt themselves, and I understand some of this can be dictated by scheme and the personnel groupings and the way you're trying to attack things. Pittsburgh tried to stay in base quite a bit against their 11 personnel, but Melvin Ingram
he was out there he was out there in coverage, wasn't he? He was asking for it.
Well, that's the thing. I have the numbers. He had 22 coverage snaps in the whole game. He dropped 5 times. It's 22%, and all 5 of those drops in the coverage came in the first half. So there were 13 coverage snaps in the first half. Ingram dropped 5 times on those 13 coverage snaps. That's 38.5%. On a day where there's no Highsmith, there's no T.J. Watt, your best, most proven pass rusher is Melvin Ingram. Why is that guy dropping into coverage over a third of the time, and you're asking guys like Derek Tuska and Jameer Jones to get the job done instead? I understand, again, some of that's partially dictated by formations and things like that, but to me, that's a game where, Ingram in general should never drop into coverage. I've said that from the get-go. Like, he's great going forward. He's disastrous going backwards. And so to do that and that be your game plan is just making a bad situation already, even more worse for your defense.
And it's amazing they didn't get ate up by that. I think they almost got ate up by that early on a Boyd kind of, what was it? That missed to Boyd over there on the right side, I think it was there. What was it?
Oh, yeah, on the right sideline? Yeah.
But, they really didn't get eaten up. They didn't get attacked that way, I guess, is where I'm getting at there. Now, I guess you could call now there was the one, I guess, on the on the third down and short, but, Evans, you have a lot of trash that guys like Schobert having to run through there on that rub on Evans on the 3rd and 3 or whatnot. That was just an easy pitch and catch and situation. I'm trying to remember if Ingram had dropped on that other side in coverage, but he wasn't the main one attacked in that one anyway. So I guess what I'm getting at is it didn't come back really to haunt them, that aspect of it, other than you don't have your single best pass rusher that was dressed for the game rushing the quarterback.
And so I would say it did haunt them, not from the coverage aspect, but from the lack of pass rush aspect. When you're on a day where you have no pass rush at all, essentially, I think that's just a really bad plan. And again, I understand some of that is, if you're in your base personnel and they're out in 11 personnel, sometimes a linebacker walks out. But man, you got to find a way to get number 8 going forward, because that's where A, he succeeds, and B, where he's needed the most on that day. It's not like T.J. Watt's still rushing opposite of that one. So I think a really bad idea to compound an already obvious problem for this defense.
They tried some stuff early with putting Ingram and Jameer Jones on the same side, and ended up Derek Tuska snap Jameer Jones, who had that on their bingo card. Obviously, Ingram played every snap. Tuska and Jameer Jones were just also runs in this game. Backside, crashing down type stuff, kind of not with fury, if you will. Even on the tackle that Tuska made, that dropped Burrow after he scrambled. I think that was Burrow. Or maybe it was a run. No, it was a run. It
was the run. It was Mixon right side, and Tuska got him by the ankles and just caught him, right?
Right, and that should have been in the backfield.
Yeah. These guys did not. I mean, T.J. Watt, Alex Smith, those guys fly down, they crash backside. Bud Dupree did it as well. These guys are hesitant, they're slow, they're worried about the boot, and they're just not. That to me was a huge issue in that game. Absolutely.
Right, and then backside inexperience of Henry Mondeau on the big run by Mixon there. I think you just got to do a better job on that backside there. I have to look at that on all 22 there, but I mean, you get what you get when you have your backups in especially guys like that. I mean, Tuska just promoted from the practice. He's a practice squad guy, you know. Mm-hmm. Makes you kind of wonder. I mean, would Cassius Marsh have fared better than Tuska, especially against the run? Maybe. I'm not advocating it. It's just a question.
Yeah. I mean, it couldn't be much worse, I guess I'll say. I mean, Marsh has not been one good against the run, but I think he would have been a little more athletic, a little more aggressive. But I will say on that long run by Mixon that Mondeau couldn't get the backside of, that's a really good box count for the Bengals. It's 6v6, so they're even, and so they got it blocked up well. And I would love the Steelers to find a way to do that kind of stuff, because it's 6v6 on a zone run, and the back just has to find the lane, and something's going to be open, and Mixon found it and hit it.
All right, trying to think what else, stuck out. I mean, they only ran 40-something plays, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
on the positive side, you get the interception, which was a great coverage by Bush to Gary Boyd vertical, squeeze that throw, Minka with the deflection, that kind of like hit off his face, I think it looked like, and Edmonds with the interception. So that was a big, significant play, kind of the highlight of the day for the Steelers defense. But other than that, it was just a really lackluster performance. And they tried to do stuff with Hayward, moved him around. As you said, they tried stuff with the outside linebacker pairing. Just nothing worked. And your front seven's really hurt, and you're playing with backups, and they played like they were playing with backups.
Was that more like a cover Tampa 2 on the Bush one with carrying the receiver on down in the middle? It was a split safety, I know. It looked like a cover 2 back end. I just don't know what I mean, Bush obviously carried. I think Ingram would dropped on that play as well too, if memory serves me.
Yeah, I'll have to look at it again. It sounds right because the way Bush was carrying number 3 vertical, probably, but I'll have to look at it again.
Is that a throw Burrow has to make?
I probably wouldn't even try to make that throw. I think the window was probably too tight, but I'll have to kind of go back and look at it again. Burrow, though, overall was really good in this game. I mean, he became the first quarterback against the Steelers to throw 3+ touchdowns on fewer than 20 attempts since Steve McNair in 2003. So to have that kind of crisp, clean, efficient performance is something most quarterbacks have not done. Actually, the third quarterback since the merger to do that against the Steelers, or since 1972, I should say, not the merger. It was Lynn Dickey in 83, McNair in 03, and Burrow in 21 to have 3 touchdowns on fewer than 20 attempts against the Steelers.
And how many dropbacks in total? How many times did he scramble? Once or twice? There was the one where he had him almost in the back. 3 guys almost had him in the backfield there for a sack, and he escaped that. What was it, like?
That got called back on holding, though, right?
Okay, yeah.
I think I have 22 total coverage snaps. I think that includes some of the penalties as well. I haven't done all my charting yet, so call it just over 20.
So a very efficient game for him, Mm-hmm. And when your quarterback doesn't have to throw 50 times a game, and 3 of his 18 attempts are touchdown passes, it was a very efficient game. I haven't watched, in depth every Joe Burrow game so far, but that has to rank up there as probably one of his best, I would think, just from an efficiency standpoint.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't know exactly. Yeah, I'm sure Bengals fans can answer that better than either of us can, but it felt like one of his better games for sure. Better than his first game against the Steelers, I'll put it that way.
All right.
Anything else for the defense, Dave? Kind of touched on it. Bush and Schobert pretty quiet. I mean, they didn't. Again, Bush had a nice coverage on that interception. Other than that, not a whole lot to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Schobert had any what would classify as stops. I think Bush had one classified stop, but that was it. They were kind of insignificant in the game overall. But once again, we're talking about 40-something snaps in total, and I mean, you'd like to have seen a couple more run stops maybe in there. I mean, Mixon obviously had the 27-yard run. I mean, for the most part, they did okay against the run.
I guess they didn't have any like huge runs or touchdowns, but I'm guessing the run success rate for the Bengals was pretty high in this one. I don't know if you have that number, but I'm betting it's going to be looking pretty good whenever it gets calculated.
It was obviously higher than the Steelers' run success rate.
That's a very low bar to clear.
Did I calculate? I was calculating so much stuff last night.
Yeah. I know the Steelers number. I don't know if you did the Bengals number, but I mean, at Mixon average, what was that, 4 or 5 yards a pop? So it felt like, especially in the second half, they just kind of controlled the ball with the ground game a little bit and got some good runs.
I'll have to break that down.
Don't worry about it. I bet you it's probably at least 50% though, is my guess on that one. So yeah, secondary, Joe Hayden was back, so that was good. Cam Sutton actually played a lot in the slot and kind of subbed out with Terrell Edmonds. The Steelers wanted to stay in their base defense against 11 personnel, so Sutton would become kind of the safety replacement for Edmonds, and so we'll see Edmonds' snap count down quite a bit in that game for that reason. Pierre gave up the touchdown. Obviously, Hayden gave the touchdown to Jamar Chase, but again, Burrow had all day to throw, so that's just tough to cover for sure. And Minka had to help influence the interception, so that was kind of the notes on the secondary.
Yep, sounds right. I mean, you just hated to see that home run go over your head there.
Yeah, big swing in the game for sure. All right, Dave, I want to flip over to the offense now and talk about the mess that was the Pittsburgh Steelers offense.
8. Hold on. Counting them up here. Rate? Yeah. Looks like 8 out of how many Mixon runs?
18.
Okay, that's the number then.
Right,
so a little less than 50%. So hooray! But a lot of those successes came early. Like you start off with his second run was a 6-yard run on 1st and 10. He had a 4-yard run on 1st and 10 with 6:45 left in the first quarter. Had another 6-yard run on 1st and 10. Boy, I'm getting jealous here looking at 1st and 10 runs going for 6 yards. What is that? Is that legal? 27 yards on 1st and 10. And then he had 2 other 11-yard runs that came on 1st and 10 early in the third quarter. So most of their failed runs seem to have come after the 12-minute mark, or after after the 11-minute mark in the third quarter. So a lot of the damage was already done at that point.
Right, for sure. So yeah, that's a good stat there, and certainly better on the ground than the Steelers were. And talking about the Steelers offense, I know for both sides of this game, it was a really slow offensive start. No one had a first down in this game until there were 5 minutes left in the first quarter, but the Steelers did not record their first down that was not a penalty related until the first play of the second quarter. And I don't know where you want to begin with this offense. You can talk about any level of the game, the ground game, the passing game, the quarterback, the receivers, the offensive line, etc. Essentially, no one played well or well enough to beat the Bengals on Sunday.
Well, I think we start with maybe a positive that at least they put the ball in attempted to put the ball in Najee Harris' hands quite a bit more in this game. That was my top keys, was get touchier with Najee, and they did. 28 total touches. Unfortunately, half of those had to come via the air via very short passes. And unfortunately, he dropped 3. PFF charged him with 5 drops. I don't know where those extra 2 came from. I have to look at that. But they did try to get the football in his hands that way, but they almost had to via the passes because they couldn't run for damn again. And 14 runs, I think two runs were successful out of 14 runs in total. I did okay at math as a kid growing up. Now, algebra and geometry, that threw me for a loop there, but that's not 50%. It's not even close to 50% there. So when you can't run and you have to use the short passing game like that as a quasi running game, you're asking a lot there. Now, he did okay, for the most part with a lot of those passes, but I mean, it really ends up being a huge dink and dunk situation there. What was the record to come out of Najee Harris and the catches there?
Yeah, it set a Steelers franchise record for most receptions by a running back in one game with 14. The old record was 13, set by Jalen Samuels a couple years ago. 14 receptions for Harris. But yeah, two successful runs on 14 attempts is 14% roughly. So your success rate and your attempts should not be the same number, and they were in this game. And so that just speaks to the continued ills of this run game.
I guess unless you're running 50 attempts and you had a 50%.
You're running the triple option offense, then maybe that's acceptable.
Let's see here. How many targets he had? Are they calling
19.
PFF's got to be wrong with the all five being drops, because one of those I know wasn't even close to him.
Yeah, I think I have him at least down for
three. Right.
2 at the end, 1 another point in the game.
And look, I mean, were the drops by him huge difference makers in the grand scheme of things? No, I don't think. But I mean, this is a guy that kind of shrugged off the catching the football. And Dob, you go back and you look what he said, during training camp and all like that. Oh man, I can catch the. I forget the exact quotes and all, but basically laughing off the notion that he can't catch the football, and then you have something like that. Yeah, you better just keep your mouth shut for a little bit here, on that. Once again, was it a huge turning point in the game? No, but and one of those is probably good that he did drop it, because he probably would have been dropped for a 2-yard loss on that situation there. But right. I mean, he was, his drops. He wasn't the only one dropping the football either. Chase Claypool, couple of drops in this game. Ebron had a drop. Everybody drink. Who else had a drop in this game?
Freiermuth. It's a bad day when Pat Freiermuth is dropping. Literally the first one I've ever seen him drop.
Yep. What did you think about the Ray McLeod off the hands? Is that a drop?
I'm trying to remember what that play was.
Over to the left in the second half. The high ball that almost got intercepted. In fact, it went off his hands, went up in the air. I thought that's a pick six right there. It was in the Steelers' own end.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at it again, to be honest with you.
It was a little bit. It was a high throw, and it went off his hands there. Who else had a drop in this game? That's enough.
I think Josh said they had 7 in total, so that might get you to 7 right there, because Harris had at least 3, Claypool had, I think, maybe 2. Freiermuth, Ebron maybe even had 2. You could definitely 1. You could argue a second one as well. Just to go back to Harris, the one heartening thing was to see him get the ball out in the pass game. We talked about that a ton, trying to get Harris in the design pass game. But for whatever it's worth, after the game, Harris said they were all checkdowns. They really weren't design passes. So even where I'm trying to give this team some credit, Harris seems to contradict that idea.
All right. Yeah. I mean, well, a lot of them were designed wide receivers. There were at least 3 or 4 of those attempts were designed screens, right?
Yeah, right.
Now, look, I mean, some checkdowns are obviously okay, right? Mm-hmm. In some situations, we were kind of calling for that. In fact, I mean, if I missed the game and you told me Najee Harris had 28 touches in the game, I'm thinking, man, they won, But obviously that wasn't the case there. It was just, their lone touchdown drive. I guess if you want a positive here, that might have been the best dink and dunk touchdown drive of Ben Roethlisberger's career. Is that a positive?
It was a shovel pass heavy offensive game plan. I'll tell you that much. They ran like 3 or 4 of those things, and some of them failed. The one where Ben had to run, I mean, it got ugly sometimes, but it was a touchdown to Freiermuth on the shovel pass. So kudos to him for his first NFL touchdown.
All right, talk about the running your head up against the brick wall run fails, and how Mike Tomlin stuck his foot in his mouth.
Yeah, this run game has been bad in a lot of ways, and I understand this team's trying to find different ways to run the football. And a lot of people have been clamoring for Derek Watt and a heavier personnel grouping, but the bottom line is, we had talked about this in our scouting report on Friday, Dave, that the Bengals, whenever you come out in heavy personnel groupings, the Bengals respond with coming out with even heavier personnel groupings, where they're going to have 5-6 defensive linemen. They're going to run 6-2 fronts and do everything they can to shut down your run game. It's pretty unique in the NFL. You don't see that kind of stuff too often. And Mike Tomlin does an interview with Bob Labriola every Sunday morning, which I think is actually a really good interview overall. It's usually where Tomlin's had his most honest and open. And was asked about that essentially and said, actually, let me pull up the exact quote here before I talk about it, because I want to get the quote exactly right here before I tear into this running game plan here. But basically says, talking about the Bengals 5 defensive linemen, heavy front, he says, quote, "If you run into that, you're stupid. That's what I mean. If they overcommit themselves to an element of play, you have to acknowledge that." Then he says he gets frustrated by people who don't realize that. So basically what Tomlin's saying is, don't come out heavy with a bunch of, run blocking type of guys, because the Bengals are going to come out even heavier and you're going to run into a brick wall. And so what did the Steelers do on Sunday? They did just that. They came out heavy quite a bit with 13 personnel, with 21 personnel, a lot of 3 tight end sets, Derek Watt on the field. And the Bengals responded with their 5 defensive linemen, their 6-2 fronts, and Pittsburgh ran into a brick wall. And that happened on several occasions. And for the life of me, I don't understand when your head coach realizes this, says it openly, and yet that's part of what your game plan is. And you get obviously disastrous results. So I have the whole article up on Steelers Depot that probably explains it better than I can do it in a podcast version. And so it's no coincidence the only 2 successful runs the Steelers had on Sunday came out of 11 personnel, and they were not successful in their heavy personnel at all. And so I think a really bad game plan, and I don't understand why this team would do that, knowing that it's a stupid thing, which are Tomlin's words, thing to do.
And then you come out with your first 3 tight end situation. You send the tight end in motion, and Eric Ebron, he doesn't cover up the tackle on the end.
Right, as part of your scripted, the second play of the game.
Right.
You've been planning on. I mean, yeah, it's just the penalties in this one, a whole nother story. And that's certainly one reason why this offense had issues, one reason why this run game had issues. And so it's not just the game plan, but to me, the game plan of doing something that Tomlin has said is, quote, stupid, is asinine.
And then you have a scripted play, like you said, the second play of the game, and you can't run it right.
Yeah.
And you get it not that it would have been lights out, but you're going backwards on that play as well too. And look, did they have a few successes that were called back because of penalties? Yes. Would those plays have been successful without the holds? Hard to say.
Yeah, the penalties certainly were a big factor in this one, especially in the first half. They definitely were drive killers. You're putting yourself behind the chains. I'm sure Mike Tomlin's going to talk about that quite a bit tomorrow. All 5 of the starting offensive linemen in this game were penalized at least once in this one. So that kind of sums up how bad things were from a penalty standpoint.
They did a much better job picking the quarterback up off the ground this time around.
It was kind of funny. You saw them all like running over every single time because they knew we're going to get yelled at if we don't do this. So unfortunately, they had to do it a lot in this game. But that's what happens when we throw the ball 60 times.
I informed my wife throughout the week of what is all the trouble that you created last week. And A, she praised you for that, and B, she says, does that mean they're going to treat Ben like the Egyptian queen this week when picking him up off the ground and all carrying him to the next play and all? She kind of got a kick out of that. But man, 7 more hits for Ben Roethlisberger in this game. Let's look at just the overall passing game plan in this, or results. I don't know how much of the plan went into this and all, but once again, we have Ben Roethlisberger not throwing the football down the field, getting the football out quickly once again. 3.3 completed air yard distance average on 50. How many damn pass attempts did he have in this game?
58.
Oh man. I mean, that should be like 2 games,
Mm-hmm.
So 3.3 completed air yard distance. In fact, the intended air yard distance wasn't much better. It's one thing if you could look at it and say, well, he just wasn't hitting deep. he had a 7-point or 8-point, intended air yards, but he just wasn't completing them. No, the intended yards was under 6 as well too, there. So what did he have? Just one of five. What did I put on the on 20-yard pass? More than 20 yards down the field. What was his completion? He only had just, I think, one completion on that, didn't he?
Yeah, I think I saw for the season he's 3 of 13. Was that the number that's the number that I saw?
Right.
I think it was for the season though, right? Not for yesterday's game.
Right, not for yesterday's game. Let me see if I can find the stat here.
It wasn't good, whatever the number was. I mean, they only in the first half they threw the ball, I think, past 10 yards once. I think the entire half. I think that was a deep ball to James Washington on a third down early in that game. But
completed 1 of 5 passes more than 20 yards past the line of scrimmage.
What's more troubling, the 1 of 5, or the fact they only had 5 attempts on a day where you threw the ball 58 times?
The correct answer would be yes.
Yes. That's right. I walked myself into that one. So, yeah. I mean, Ben was not good in this game, obviously. He was bad.
But even so, it's down the list here, right? I mean,
I'm not trying to create a list of things. I mean, he's bad.
Here's the thing: the interception to Logan Wilson's living right, man. I mean, that guy is just living right. I mean, I want to know what Logan Wilson's eating these days, because he's having people just throw the ball right to him as if he's the offensive player. And then obviously had 2 interceptions in this game. I don't know what Ben saw. I think I know what Ben saw, and he didn't see Logan Wilson on that play for some reason. Escaping out to his right and just threw it right in his belly there to him. There. The other interception, okay, he's hit. Logan, right place, right time, makes the interception there. The drops, okay, that gets factored in there. The thing that gives me the biggest heartburn, I think, of Ben Roethlisberger's performance, other than that just ugly interception to Logan Wilson, was in the second half there, or later in the fourth quarter, you have James Washington has his guy beat by 3.5, 4 yards.
Yeah.
It's probably the single best stacking of a wide receiver on a attempt his way this season, and you miss it. If you hit that, who knows? I mean, who knows?
It's a touchdown for starters.
Right,
I'm pretty sure.
Right. I'm pretty sure it's a touchdown too. But that one throw, you got it. You don't get many of those. You don't get many where probably you got a guy like James Washington stacking a guy like that down the field. And it's not like it was 45, 50 air yards on top of it, right? It's like 35 air yards, I think, on that. So, yeah, if there's one instance there where you really have to shrug your shoulders about Ben Roethlisberger, it was that pass attempt right there. Now, once again, didn't attack the middle of the field, staying away from the middle of the field from a single high, whether it be cover 1, cover 3 situation. Ben wants no part of that. The drops, okay, we get it. The Eric Ebron one in the end zone there, is that a drop? I mean, it hit.
Well, that's what I was saying. Yeah, I was saying you could give that a drop. I mean, it's a tough play, but Ebron needs to make some tough plays. He gets paid to make those tough plays.
You fast forward into the night and you see Aaron Rodgers and that game, and you see that tight red zone cover 2 hole shot, just where there's only one place where that ball can be thrown, and it gets thrown there. Then you think back to what we've seen so far, really the last 2, season and 3 games of Ben Roethlisberger. We just don't see those kind of throws from Ben Roethlisberger. So within that, if you don't have a running game, which the Steelers don't, and you don't have the protection, and you have wide receivers, you have eligibles dropping short passes, then you get what you get what you had happen in the game. You had, with this quarterback right now, and it's been this way since through last season, you absolutely have to have other elements of the game go absolutely right. And that means a running game and pass protection. If you don't have those two things, you're going to get what you have. All right. And there's going to be more of that coming because this isn't magically going to get better against Green Bay, against the Broncos, against the Seahawks. And on top of it, if your quarterback continues to get hit 7 times a game, well, then it's not how much more can he take before he starts missing time?
Yeah, no, I agree with you across the board. Ben's play is simply not elevating anyone else right now. I mean, there are times where he's doing okay, I guess, where at times he's kind of the only source of offense you might have, but his play is not elevating other receivers the way that other top-tier quarterbacks in the league are. And so they need to have a run game, and they do not have a run game, clearly. And so without that, this offense is going to continue to come up short time and time again. But, when Ben is throwing to Logan Wilson, when he's standing 3 feet in front of him, whenever he's taking a sack on a play where he's got to throw that ball away instead, so 2nd and 15 instead of 2nd and 10, those kinds of moments when he's missing the deep ball to James Washington, that would have been a huge play. Instead, it's incomplete. He's not elevating the performance of anybody. And so Ben was bad in this game the way that the rest of the offense in this game was bad.
They can win with Ben, current version of Ben, but they can't without a running game, and they can't with the offensive line in its current shape. All right. And then especially if your defense has an adjusted net yards per passing attempt number of over 7, that's obviously not playing into the offense's hands as well, too. You can't get short fields. You can't get sacks. I mean, there are variables that need to go along with Ben's ability in game right now. Now, the question is that people will try to push, I'm sure, right now is can this offense do any better with a guy like Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins in there? And I would contend that the answer is no.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any magically better results coming with those guys who are just as immobile, or Rudolph. and Haskins a little more mobile, but Rudolph basically as immobile as Ben is behind this line. I mean, maybe you would get some more consistency with the deep ball, maybe, but obviously you're not going to win significantly more games with Rudolph than you would with Ben.
And you could contend that, okay, well, you have to pass more maybe to set up the run, all right? But if you can't threaten down the field passing, then you're, just merely dropping back and throwing short passes is not going to, if anything, it's going to invite them even closer to the line of scrimmage in those situations, which is going to make it even harder to run there. So if you're not able to connect down the field and consistently and make that the focal point of the defense having to defend, then none of it's going to matter at that point. And it's a pretty bleak outlook 3 games into the season, but it's kind of one that we warned people that this offensive line was going to be a work in progress, that there was question marks. I'm not sure if we knew it was going to be this bad, but it's bad. I mean, it makes the unit last season right now look like a bunch of Pro Bowlers.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it's 3 games into this year, but it's a continuation of problems last year. So it's really like 19 games running as opposed to just 3 games into this season. And I'll say even this, last year, even during the, after the first 4 games, the run game was okay. Beyond that, the only thing that worked for this offense was kind of tempo, no huddle, Ben kind of doing his own thing. And with Matt Canada changing things and the huddle package being much more limited than it was under Randy Fichtner in past years, even that element isn't there really as much or as effectively anymore, where you just can't really turn on the tempo and have the whole playbook open for Ben and his offense. And so the one thing that worked last year really isn't as much of an option to Ben this year, which makes things even more difficult.
I hate to say it, but I mean, the best option right now is almost 100% RPO.
Yeah. I mean, and those essentially just turn into like 95% pass plays.
Right. But, I mean, spread them out and count, get the conflict player, count the box and count your blessings and say your prayers and run that. But quite honestly, I mean, because you're not going to air raid this probably, right? I mean, so I mean, I really think that your best option is to RPO this. Now, here's the thing on top of it here. You got to be able to have more checks in this thing, too. You got to get to the line of scrimmage quicker. You've got to have the ability to check in and out of some. What would Peyton Manning do? Now obviously he's a lot more cerebral of a quarterback too, but you've got to have the ability to check out of certain things, especially some of these box counts and some of these heavier packages. If you're going to have Eric Ebron on the field, you better have and Pat Freiermuth at the same time. You have to have the ability to stretch to go from a condensed to a stretched out situation there and try to attack a matchup that way with Najee or one of those tight ends, but they can't do that.
Yeah, they did do it once, and that was one thing in the second half I did note in my article where they went heavy and the Bengals put their big people on the field and they spread things out and hit Najee for a 6 or 7 yard gain in the flat, which it's an elongated run play and it's a successful one at that. But I mean, the bottom line is, that you said, Dave, is this team needs a run game. They're not going to succeed without a run game. That's just the bottom line. And this run game is nowhere to be found. And the coaching is making things even harder on themselves with, I think, a really poor, and again, to use Tomlin's word, a stupid game plan. So I mean, I understand we're 30,000-foot view and, we don't understand all that goes into the game plan, but I don't understand the Steelers' game plan here when they're doing a thing that they know will not work and their head coach admits it will not work. And so why is that part of your game plan at all? I just can't wrap my head around that.
There was one point, I don't know if you saw it, when it was in the second half there, I think Kendrick Green run fail block there where he just turns around and he got beat and he's looking at the defensive lineman make the tackle there, and they shoot up into the press box there with Chris Morgan sitting next to Matt Canada there, and Chris Morgan watches the replay and just has this kind of shake head grimace look on his face there. A still frame I might have to make a gif of that this week, because it might be one of the better gifs that I make this week. Overall there, it just shows that this isn't going too well there. I mean, you have a very good quarterback coach on staff now in Mike Sullivan. You have a guy, a former offensive lineman, and Adrian Clem trying to direct this offensive line. You have a very experienced assistant offensive line coach in Chris Morgan there. So they have the coaching on staff there. I feel it's just they're not executing, man, at all.
Yeah, but when I see that game plan of the run game, I really question what the team is doing.
Sure.
Because Tomlin says it's stupid, and he's right. And we noted that before Tomlin said that. So it's like I'm trying to be like super hindsight about it. We talked about this on our scouting report we did up Thursday night and we're posted on Friday morning. So we knew I was telling fans, you're probably not going to see a lot of Derek Watt this week because you can't go heavy against this Bengals team. And they tried to do that. And it wasn't the whole game plan, but it was part of it. And it failed every single time. And so it's hard to sit there and say you have trust in this coaching staff when they're making, to me, some very basic mistakes.
I laid in bed last night trying to think what I would, at this point. And look, anybody thinking this team's going to go out and get another quarterback off the street or get Cam Newton, unless Ben Roethlisberger goes down, and really unless Ben Roethlisberger and Mason Rudolph go down, that's just not happening. So you can just forget about that. I mean, it's silly. The ship's going to sink with what it is right now. Period. Right.
Yeah, I mean they're taking a lot of water, so I mean they're going down. But yeah, I mean they're not signing.
All right. So within that, I was trying to think last night. What is the answer offensively to kind of mitigate this stuff? And the only thing I could come up with was, just run a whole heck of a lot of RPO stuff. I mean, build it all around your RPO stuff.
Yeah, I mean I get that. I mean, do you not throw the deep ball ever then? Is that?
I think
deep ball and RPOs.
You just build that in, to certain look. I mean, you got to check to some of that stuff, I think.
Yeah, well, you can't have vertical routes on an RPO because you're going to get called for ineligible or illegal guys downfield.
Right, but I think there are certain situations where you get a certain look where maybe you can change out of that. Not obviously not 100%,
sure,
but
no,
a bulk of that, and have the ability to check to something that will allow you to stretch the field. Because look, on top of it too, do you really trust this offense to throw the football 12 times more than 20 yards, or even more than 15 yards down the field? No.
Well, the problem is I don't trust this offense to do a darn thing right now, because that's where I come back to. I don't know how to fix it. I mean, I think you have to run the ball to have a chance with this offense, but I don't know how you get to that point. I think you have to spread the field out more, go more 11 personnel, try to create letter boxes for Najee Harris. But beyond that, I'm kind of out of ideas.
I mean, do you agree with? I mean, I trust it to do a lot of quick passes and maybe count boxes and go from there. I mean, I think that's all you can do right now at this point. So I think you try to find a conflict player on some up tempo RPO stuff and go from there. I think that's your best option. Just hope that you can crack a run or two without a hold in there.
Right. I mean, that's basically what the plan was last year, which is the quick game, 3-step, 1-step game. And so
Randy Fiedner doesn't seem like such a bad guy right now, does he?
People probably buying some boom boxes outside of Randy Fiedner's window. No, I mean, it's just tough, obviously. And so it's not all on coaching. It's not all on the players, but no one's compensating for the other. The coaching is not overcoming the execution issues, the player issues, and the player issues are not overcoming the coaching mistakes that are being made.
Yeah, I guess if you put Mason in there, you have maybe the ability to stretch the football field a little bit further down the field. But, because, I mean, he hasn't been awful with the deep. I mean, can you protect him, though,
Right, yeah. I mean, I think your deep ball would get better with Mason in there over Ben. But is that going to transform this offense enough? Again, the bottom line is you still have to run the football. I don't care who this quarterback is, whether it's Haskins or Rudolph or Ben. They don't have a top-tier quarterback who can throw the ball 40, 50 times per game and win and thrive. And so this run game has to exist, and obviously it's not.
Right.
So anything else here? Kind of torched this team pretty good, but I think it's deservingly so. Claypool, I think, did an okay job. Harris, I mean, good to see him get involved. I mean, that guy took a beating, though. I bet you there's nobody more sore today than Najee Harris. That guy got just pounded on all day.
Yeah, but you drafted him to be your bell cow, right?
Right. I'm not mad about it, but I'm feeling for that guy. We should mention some plays in particular. Speaking of Harris, the 4th and 10 swing pass to Najee. Ben and Tomlin talked about that after the game, saying that was a design play that. I don't know what they were trying to say. Actually, Ben said that was designed to get to Najee with blockers out in space. There were no blockers on that play. So I know it's a tough situation. There is no magical call there, but who knows?
What was your thoughts on? I mean, the whole picket fence thing, and I mean they had him in a precarious situation on the 4th and 10.
Right, yeah, the picket fence, and you did see it. The Bengals basically dropped like 6 guys on the goal line and just dare you to throw the ball in front, and they rally and tackle the catch. My initial thought was it felt like it was a hot read because the Bengals were showing blitz and dropped out of it, but the Steelers said that that was a design call. It wasn't that they were expecting a blitz, and so I mean, if there were blockers on that play, then okay, I guess I can get that. Ben said there were supposed to be blockers out in front, the receivers to the top, but those guys were running actual routes. They never tried to block or attempted to block or anything like that. So Najee Harris needs to go 14 yards with 6 guys attacking him. I don't know in what world that's going to work.
Yeah, I don't either. We had fired all of our bullets at that juncture in terms of some of our play selection.
Yeah, I guess Tomlin basically saying we were out of ideas, we had nothing left to do, and we were in a bad situation. Again, if they were blockers, if it was like, because you see on like the 3rd and longs, you get that receiver shallow cross and receivers kind of block out in space. It's kind of a design screen, but not with a lineman pulling. If they had done that, I mean, I guess I could get on board with that, but there's no one blocking. So I don't know what the team was trying. I mean, it was funny to hear Ben talk about that because he was explaining the play, then was like, yeah, maybe we should have taken a shot to the end zone. Actually, yeah, we should have done that. it kind of dawned on him mid-thought, like, I mean, why didn't we do that? Why do we not just take a shot? What do we get to lose at that point? So that was a kind of funny moment there from Ben. But yeah, just a very strange play call.
I mean, you don't have something that you can't call that you've been working on all summer that you say, look, we really wanted to hold on to this one, but you know, you know, do we put it in? You know, you got to do something other than that. Now, and I understand maybe you got a little bit fooled there with the look, and it was the perfect defensive call to show something and then back out of it because what's the worst thing that can happen type situation there. But you know, you just got to come up something with some sort of a I don't know, rub quick vertical or something like that other than what you got.
Yeah, or even it doesn't have to be like some sort of amazing McVayian. I'm verbing that type of call. It just has to be like just throw it up in the end zone to Claypool and let's see if he can make a play. Like just do something that gives your guy a chance to put the ball in the end zone.
Boy, what about that? Speaking of offenses right now, boy, how is Matthew Stafford must be loving life right now, right?
What a fit those guys are, McVay and Stafford.
Holy moly, what they did in that game offensively, for sure. And look, I'm sure the motion reports will come out this week, and the Steelers' motion percentage will be down. Well, when you only run the football 14 times, right, to Najee there, and you pretty much abandon the run in the second half, and if you don't use some of the motion early on some of those runs, your motion percentage is going to be way down overall for total plays run there. So, you know, you're going to probably start hearing the Joe Blow fans start saying, well, what's the identity of this offense, this week? Well, there is none.
Yeah, I mean, they're not wrong about that. I mean, this team has lacked an identity for quite some time. So yeah, I think we've said all there really is to say. No one was good enough. That much was clear. The first half offense is still poor. They're still not getting points on the board. They've scored 14 points in the first half of their first three games combined. They're playing from behind consistently. I mean, they barely how much from a time standpoint have they played with a lead this year? I mean, I guess kind of like the half of the third quarter or fourth quarter in the Bills game, a little bit in the Raiders game. And that's been about it. I mean, It's probably been about 15 minutes playing with a lead in 3 games.
Yeah, and what would you say was the biggest turning point in this game?
The end of half drive and the end of the first half, where they get that 3-play, 75-yard drive. You get the Ingram, roughing the passer call, which was questionable, but it was the call, and you give up the big touchdown to Chase. And like I said, after that, coming out of the second half, you give up the long drive for the field goal. So the end of half drive, though, for sure, by the Bengals offense.
Okay, within that, I think people probably want us to talk about the decision on the Steelers' long touchdown drive. Why call a timeout on after? Let's see, 3rd and 5, Cincinnati 22, 1:22 left. Ben Roethlisberger pass short left to Najee Harris to the Cincinnati 4 for 18 yards. Why call a timeout there at 1:09?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to that moment. Did they call it immediately after that play?
It was called at 1:09. The play was run at 1:22. So I guess what? How many seconds off the play clock then?
Yeah, probably like 5 seconds after that play ended or something. I'm not sure. I can't remember the situation. I mean, I don't know if that was a personnel issue or if they wanted to do some sort of sub or what. I mean, obviously the implication being, you could have run clock and the Bengals were to get the ball back with less time left and probably don't score there. So it's probably a fair criticism, but I don't remember exactly what went into that timeout.
I mean, that was timeout number 1 by the Steelers, so they still had plenty of timeouts there unless you're having and substitution issues should not happen. It'd be interesting if Mike he should be asked, I think, about maybe that timeout. I don't think he was after the game.
He was, but he said he couldn't remember what the circumstances were.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe he can remind himself here as the week goes on here. But you're asking to leave some time on the clock in that situation there when you have 3 timeouts and you have the ability to run out the clock in that situation there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a fair point. But to the defensive, aspect, the 1st and 10 play when the Bengals get the ball back, Tyler Boyd in the middle of the field gets out of bounds. You can't let that happen. Force him to burn a timeout. You get to roughen the pass with the next play. Mike Tomlin on a slant for 19 yards. I think there might have been a little bit of miscommunication on that play, and then the next play was the chase touchdown. So just 4 plays in a row, just some big negative outcomes there by the defense.
Anything else penalty wise here that we need to talk about?
Too many of them. 10 of them. In terms of particular moments, I don't think so.
All right. Look, this just kind of feels like last year all over again, except they even worse running the football and even worse offensive line play there. It seems kind of predicated on Ben hitting a couple. It seems predicated on the second half going empty. Dink and dunk, hope for no mistakes, and maybe connecting on a deep ball or two for a touchdown in the second half to overcome some of this stuff, and then maybe your defense getting a turnover or special teams block. I mean, it just feels like the offense can't win it.
Right. I can't. It doesn't feel like it. I mean, that's just reality. I mean, there are just so many moments yesterday that just kind of you have to laugh at, like Ben tripping and falling on that shovel pass to Derek Watt. Like just even when he's not getting hit, the dude still ends up on the ground. So I mean, just Freiermuth dropping a pass. Chris Boswell missing the first field goal. Never missed against the Bengals in his life. So you got a special teams miscue there. It doesn't. They're not going to win that game because he makes that field goal. But I mean, just kind of sums up the day that Freiermuth does things he's never done before. Boz does things he's never done before against the Bengals, and Ben still finds ways to fall on the ground when no one's within 5 yards of him. So it's the game you kind of have to laugh at.
Then you turn around and you see the Ravens just not play great football overall throughout the day against a Lions team, and then it comes down to a record-setting 66-yard field goal from Justin Tucker, and they walk it off. And
it doinks, it gets off the crossbar.
Yeah.
In it just, of course.
And then you see a Browns team that. I don't know what you thought about it. I don't know if you looked at the highlights on that, but not. They ran the football well, I guess, and that's a key point in that whole thing there. And really, for the most part, I think the Ravens did too, especially when you got a guy like Lamar Jackson getting 60-something yard, whatever he had in that game there. On top of it, you don't have a quarterback in Roethlisberger that can extend plays, that can hurt teams. It was comical. I mean, one of the best plays that they had in the game was Roethlisberger converting on a rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, kind of situation there. And you don't have a quarterback that can extend plays. You don't have a quarterback that can, stretch the field vertically down the field. And especially not between the numbers, and you don't have a running game. I mean, I don't know where the hope is. You don't have one of those quarterbacks on your roster unless maybe you consider getting Joshua Dobbs off of IR and then releasing him and then re-signing him and trying some funky stuff that way. You see the 49ers be able to bring in their rookie to do something on a touchdown there in the red zone, but you got to get to the red zone to even run those kind of plays there. Right. So, I guess this is the portion of the show. I mean, you don't want to start pulling out the shovel and throwing the dirt on things quite just yet, but where's the optimism here?
It's hard to find. I mean, hopefully this defense gets healthier and, some of those guys, Watt and Highsmith, can return. But as you mentioned, top of the show, your consolation prize for losing this game is a trip to Lambeau Field to play the Green Bay Packers. And how good did Aaron Rodgers look last night in that Niners game you just mentioned? You're going to need to put up points in that game. I mean, the defense might be able to play well, but, 10, 14, 17 points not going to be enough to beat the Packers. So you got to put up probably 24, 25 plus. And this offense does not look capable of doing that right now.
I mean, even look at Aaron Rodgers' age and his mobility and the things he's able to do right now at this point. I mean, and then just look at some of the throws that Cat made. I mean, even in the final drive, man.
I went over the middle. That first throw was just incredible.
Unreal. And you just, you think, okay, all right, if Roethlisberger can do that once, can he do it multiple times, throughout the season, moving forward? And the answer is no. I mean, the offense just can't. Especially not when people are saying, well, all right, here's another narrative that we're going to hear all week, Alex, is can they go out and go get another offensive lineman off the street or two to make this offense better?
I mean, by the time those guys get in football shape, I mean, it sounds good, but it doesn't usually work out that cleanly on paper. So, I mean, we'll see what's going on with the core four. I mean, if he's not available, like I said, I think with Joe Haig, I think you can run the ball behind him a little bit, and we'll see if Zach Banner can come back. Well, I mean, I think he's eligible for this game. I don't know if he's going to return or not. So I think you look at those options before you look out of house.
And then speaking of these guys on IR right now, how much does Anthony McFarland maybe help you offensively?
None.
All right. How much overall does maybe a guy like Zach Banner help you?
I think it could a little bit in the run game, but we just haven't seen a lot of Zach Banner in offensive tackle in his career. So, I mean, I think it could help, but it's not going to obviously magically transform this team. It's
more of a projection right now based on the snaps that he's played overall. Yeah. I mean, or more just the notion is that he's got to be better than a core four, over there on that side. They're not going to pull Dan Moore right now at this point. I mean, that is J.C. Hassenauer maybe a better option for the next game or two until Kendrick can get a grasp of things? I mean, that's a question I think that needs to be asked, because it's been a rough look. It's no use looking at Kendrick Green, what Kendrick Green might become at this point. We have to live in the now right now with him. Mm-hmm. And the now with Kendrick Green is he's been awful the first three games.
Well, yeah, I think it's been really bumpy for sure. I'm probably being a little generous with that comment. I mean, first, let's see if Green's healthy enough to play in this game. I mean, that's kind of step one. And step two is, if Green's not out there, Hassenauer's in, some of the athletic stuff you're trying to do in the scheme that you can do with Green because he's athletic enough to do it, you won't be able to do with Hassenauer. So it will change your scheme some. Could you still justify that? Possibly, but you will have to change up your scheme to compensate for the lack of athleticism that the Green would have out there or not have out there.
We both picked this team to go 9-8 this season, and I think it was more of a let's try to be optimistic here, maybe kind of aspect of it. I did have them sneaking into. I still think the AFC North's going to be a mess, and these teams are going to beat each other up and whatnot, and potentially 9, maybe 10 wins the division there. But man, I'm starting to wonder now. I mean, you lose a game. 2 games that you kind of have circle on this schedule early on, the Raiders and the Bengals, that you think, okay, yeah, they can win. They should win those games, and you don't win them. And then now you're going on the road to Green Bay, with pieces of your defense beat up and can't run the football at all. It makes you kind of wonder. I mean, even the Broncos right now are playing good football.
Yeah. They're undefeated still, right?
Right. So, we'll see. They have to play who do they play? The Browns or the Ravens this week? But or no, maybe it's the Bengals. No, the Bengals play Jacksonville on Thursday night.
Ooh-wee. Ravens.
Huh?
Denver plays the Ravens this
okay, Denver plays the Ravens there. I mean, you're starting to wonder now. You look past going into the bye, their next 3 games they play Green Bay, Denver, and Seattle.
And that's in Seattle, or is that a home game?
That the Seattle game's a home game, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Okay, I wasn't sure. Not that it really matters at this point. I don't think.
Right.
I mean, at this point, it's not about who you're facing. The Steelers can't take care of their own problems. They can't beat seemingly anyone right now. It feels like.
And we said that they better have a good first half of the season here, because the schedule really gets brutal in the second half there. So I don't know. It's not looking great, Bob.
When was the last time this team was dead last in the North after more than a game? I was trying to think about that last night. Was it 2013?
Or sole possession, if you qualify it with sole possession, yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
If they can't run the football, it's not going to matter. Period.
Right, and they can't run the football, and I have yet to see. I mean, maybe it gets better against a team that have a different game plan than the Bengals, but they're not going to run the ball well this year.
All right. Well, then, I don't know how it's going to get better.
Yeah. So wish we could talk some people off the ledge, but I think we just tossing people off the ledge today. But that's the reality. And, things can change. This team, went from 11-0 last year and it felt like everything was great and it changed quickly. Maybe it's the inverse that happens this year, but yet to see any evidence of that.
All right. What else?
I think that's about everything. I think we covered it pretty well.
The listenership probably going to start dropping off here. And look, the season's not over. A lot of stuff obviously can happen here, but you're going to have T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith back against the Packers first and foremost. You're going to have to figure out a way to run the football, and you're going to have to figure out a way to connect the football down the football field more than 15 yards past the line of scrimmage somehow, 3, 4, 5 times a game. Or you're going to have some catch short, run long, a lot of it there. And that's a lot of you're going to have in situations. If there was one thing that we could put our finger on, we would. But, personally, I think this team needs to run more RPO and just see what happens there. At least you're going to not get Ben hit maybe as much, maybe that's a high side there. And obviously you got to stop the penalties. You got to stop the drops on top of it. So, all right, we have gone an hour and 15 minutes, I think, here.
And just last thought.
Go ahead.
What it comes down to me is it's kind of like playing the 2019 version of this team where you had a really bad offense. You knew the offense was bad, so it really relied on the defense to even more so focus on splash plays, taking the football away, special teams coming up, making big plays. Those units are going to be responsible for the big chunk plays. And obviously, you're not going to get that every single week and every single play, but that might be even more of a focus just to try to create some short fields and big moments as they did in week 1 to really turn the tide and help beat the Bills. And how in the world this team beat the Bills? I'm still trying to figure that one out. But,
And people, we got so many emails asking us to redo our season predictions after that Bills game too. All right, let's get to the email machine and get out of here. Monday Blues from Bryce. Hey guys, it's Bryce. What an ugly loss on Sunday. 2 questions. Mike Tomlin's phrase, "We ran out of bullets yesterday," is right up there with Fietner's 2019 opening loss to the Patriot statement of "I lost my nerve a little bit." What do you guys think of him saying that about the 4th down call? Bryce, we already addressed that. Not going to readdress that now. Number 2, lost in this disaster of a game is the lack of playmaking by the inside linebackers. It's a very quiet day for them. Did you see them being neutralized, or do you think the game plan yesterday didn't do enough creatively scheme to put those guys in position to make more plays? We already talked about the lack of plays that Joe Schobert and Bush made. Look, they only ran 40-something plays, Could you have seen those 2 linebackers be more impactful maybe against some runs? Yeah, probably. We'll see what the All-22 says on that. It's kind of hard to judge that off of the TV tape. Look, even on the 3rd and 3 or 4 quick pass to Evans there, it's a great design against that defense there. I'm surprised Schobert made it through the trash the way he did. I think Joe Schobert might deserve half a game ball just for the sheer fact of the way he worked through the trash on that play.
Yeah, I will say Bush again did a nice job carrying Boyd vertical on that interception that Edmonds came down with and kind of helped squeeze that throw. But those guys can certainly make more impactful plays. But I think Dave, you made the right point. The Bengals ran 39 plays from scrimmage, discounting kneel downs, and so just not a lot of opportunities to make plays.
All right, Zach writes in Najee questions. Hope you're feeling ready to go this morning, fellas. It's a Najee email for you, and I'll try to make it quick. How many drops do you say Najee had? Just having watched on TV, I thought I remembered 4, but have been seeing both numbers 3 and 4 floating out there. Do you remember one that is distinctly questionable that explains this discrepancy? Zach, I think we have it. I have it at 3, but I've gone through it 3 times there. PFF has it for 5. I don't see how that's right. I struggle trying to get to 4, to be honest with you. I think it's 3 in total here. So we'll revisit this later in the week. Number 2, the thing that stood out to me about Najee in college, the thing that made him special to my untutored eye was his explosiveness, particularly his lateral explosion and mobility behind the line of scrimmage, and then his ability to stick his foot in the ground and explode through holes. I thought the translation of that skill set to the NFL was the biggest hope for him, at least run game improvement in the face of poor run blocking as it has been the toolbox of Steelers backs for the last few years. Thought his open field work has been a marvel at times, and it feels like the only source of offensive hope through 3 NFL games. I haven't seen that explosive aspect of Najee's college game show up again, particularly behind that line of scrimmage. Do you think it's physical limitation? Do you think especially explosive context of the NFL? Blah, blah, blah. Look, I mean, not a lot of places to run right now to start off with. Second, he's made some plays out in space, so you have to give him that. Just there's not been a lot of opportunity for him to make plays out in space, and then on the couple of nice runs that he has had this season, a couple have been called back by penalties.
Yeah, I think Najee's been fine. I mean, I'm sure everyone can always do better, and the drops were frustrating, but I mean, someone needs to show me an example of a play where like Harris screws up and does something wrong. There might have been some issue in pass pro yesterday. I don't know. Hubbard, I think, was looping and twisting. I'm not sure, but as a runner, I'm not sure what more you're looking for the guy. So, I mean, are there examples where he could probably do some things better? I think so. But in terms of that lack of explosion you're saying, I'm not really seeing that as an issue with this game right now.
Other than the drops yesterday, I mean, well, what else do you expect that kid to do? You know, it's starting to come back to the Steelers shouldn't have drafted a running back early, should have drafted an offensive lineman. I suppose we're going to get that argument here moving forward here. But, I mean, when you look at the couple of the offensive linemen that were drafted behind them right now before the second-round pick, a lot of those guys are not playing or not playing well, I don't think. Darisaw, what's he doing? And what's the Oklahoma State kid doing?
Yeah, he's on IR right now. He had a back surgery. I mean, yeah, Darisaw one pick ahead, so you know he wasn't on the board for Pittsburgh. So yeah, I think that argument of I'm not saying the reader made it here. I don't think he did, but
no.
the argument of drafting an offensive line at 24 doesn't really make sense because there really wasn't an offensive lineman to draft at 24.
All right, let's see here. Cody Bailey, question for Alex. What is the Faith Carey tweet every Sunday? This might be the most entertaining portion of the podcast right here. Sad for us. Question for Alex. What is the Faith over Carey tweet every Sunday? Help me out. Haha. I'm looking forward to the Depot team breaking down this game, even if it was terrible. Keep up the good work. God bless you, Cody. Answer that, Alex.
I hope, Cody, you carried that same thought after listening to us rip this team. Yeah, Faith, it's just a joke. Faith Hill over Carrie Underwood. Faith Hill used to do the Sunday night intro and got replaced by Carrie Underwood, and I was mad about that and just tweeted it out, and it just kind of stuck, and so now it's just tradition as a Sunday ritual, which makes me feel a little bit better after the Steelers get crushed.
Do you really believe that, though? Do you believe your own nonsense there? Faith over
little
Carey?
Black dress always wins out.
Oh,
These intros, though, are really bad. Like, I mean, Carrie Underwood's fine, but, like, the intros are very cheesy and cringy.
Oh, Lord. I think I got to take Carey there, and I like Faith Hill, too. All right. Let's see here. Mark Chapman writes in. He's got 2 back-to-back here about wake up. He says, when the Steelers are going to realize that pocket passing quarterbacks are history in the NFL. Brady and Rodgers are the exception. Well, if they're the exception and they're winning, then why is it history? But it's time to move away from standard as a standard, rip off the Band-Aid, and realize we need to rebuild our offensive line and quarterback to compete with the league as it is today. Well, they just addressed the offensive line with 2 draft picks, did they not?
Yeah, I would guess he would argue to have higher investments in those picks.
Okay, and at the same time he wants to draft a mobile quarterback. On top of it. And then the second email, perfect example, bringing in Trey Lance on Sunday Night Football for Jimmy G, touchdown before the half. We need a mobile quarterback. Well, you want to. Hope. I don't know how Joshua Dobbs is healing up these days with that turf toe or whatever it was, but I guess you release Josh Dobbs from IR, you re-sign him, and then do what?
Wouldn't you still have to wait the 3 weeks to sign him back too?
I don't think with that,
no,
because it's not an injury settlement. So you would have to. I don't believe so. I think you would just, because it wouldn't be an injury settlement. You would. I'm assuming that Joshua Dobbs is healthy. Okay. All right. So it would be a healthy release from IR, no settlement.
Okay.
And then you turn around and re-sign him. You'd have. I don't know if it's a release or a waive in that situation, but you probably have to clear waivers if it's a waive there. But there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I understand the value of mobility. I still think it's a little bit overrated, but I understand that idea, and so I'm sure when the Steelers look for the next franchise quarterback, that's going to be an element of things.
Yeah, look, I mean, in today's NFL, you have to have I believe you have to have a quarterback to some degree that can extend a play, and make something out of nothing. Not necessarily be one that has to run like Lamar Jackson does, but even Baker took off with a couple of runs yesterday that turned the tide in that game. So yeah, you have to have a quarterback that can make plays outside of the pocket, I believe, for whatever that's worth. Now, yeah, there are exceptions. Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, but even Aaron Rodgers to some degree has some mobility to him.
Yeah, a lot more mobile than Ben is, I'll tell you that much.
John Stefano writes in, you know the subject. Hello, David Alex. You guys have hundreds of emails today, I'm sure, and most will be the same narrative, so I will spare you the repetition of the same. I just want to say I think in regards to this team, they don't practice. That's the way to explain the lack of offense in the first quarter, first half, etc., etc. They are poorly organized, coached, and led zero pep in their step, and it's obvious. Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work. I don't think it's from a lack of practice or a lack of pep in the step. I just think it's from a overall quality standpoint offensively, starting obviously at the quarterback and the offensive line. That's where it starts.
Yeah, it's hard to quantify pep or lack thereof. I don't have a metric for that. Maybe the point is, Ben doesn't practice on Wednesday, and so that kind of, hinders some of the performance early in the game. I mean, I don't know. I really don't agree with that statement necessarily, but I mean, yeah, I'm with you, Dave. Short answer.
All right, Anthony writes in, hey guys, long-time listener, second-time caller. I don't have a question today, just more of a comment, maybe something a little uplifting for Steeler. All right, we'll end this after this email because it's an attempt to be positive here. For Steeler Nation on this Monday following a bad loss. The great Tunch Ilkin used to say that a loss like the one against the Bengals is like eating a bad pistachio nut. The only way to get the horrible taste out of your mouth is by eating a good pistachio nut. And I can't help but think that next week's game at the Packers could be that good pistachio nut we need. Sorry, I mean, okay. Call me a dumb optimist. My friends already, football friends already do. But I take this approach into every game I watch. Otherwise, what fun is it? Okay. Be well. I love everything you guys do. Special shout out to Dr. Mel too. What a fabulous addition to the team she has become. Absolutely. No denying that. Look, I mean, it would be another improbable win. Would a win against the Packers in Lambeau trump the win against the Bills in Week 1 in Buffalo?
I mean, maybe just because of how almost improbable it feels at this moment. I mean, I'll just take the victory and worry about ranking it after the fact. That's kind of my approach. It could happen, sure. I mean, this team's weird and football's weird, and you never know what to expect. So, I mean, if they do, though, I will not know what to think about this team when they're just playing so up and down the way that they are. But I mean, the Packers laid the egg week 1, so maybe they do it again. If
they beat the Packers on the road in Lambeau, and it's not with Aaron Rodgers getting annihilated, knocked out of the game in the first quarter or whatnot, with some sort of injury or something like that, then I mean, I don't know how that doesn't trump it all. But that's why they play. Look, we do this because we love football. I was thinking to myself last night, man.
Oh God.
Man, I get to watch football, and you get to watch, unfortunately, what the Steelers, but you watch the end of that Packers 49ers game, man. I mean, I mean, what more could you ask for as a football fan if you love football than to watch that? Now, it's the NFL. There's no such thing as trap games in the NFL, like it or not. It's not, because any given Sunday, things can happen with professional players, and that's the situation here. We're not going to probably have a lot of optimism going into this week, but that's why they play the games, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to tamp down anyone's optimism and be that much of a jerk about it. So hopefully, and I totally get that perspective, if you go in really pessimistic, then it's hard to enjoy the game more. So, I mean, by all means, be excited, be a fan. That's the fun of sports.
And what we try to do during the week is we try to learn from both the good and bad that the Steelers put on tape. That's, unfortunately, probably going to be trying to learn from a lot of bad this week, but that's our job. We try to look at the entire thing and praise the good and try to learn from the bad along with the team.
Yeah. To me, in a word, I like to try to keep my head when I evaluate things, a player, a team, a situation is fair. Am I being fair to the situation? And when it's good, then we'll talk about the good. When it's bad, we'll talk about the bad. It's never always 100% bad or 100% good. But unfortunately, after this game, it's pretty close to 100% bad. But it's not quite there. There are couple things to talk about.
We'll try to pick out a little bit of good from this game, maybe in a film room or two here, or maybe just one. But in the meantime, let's see. We will have hopefully a beat writer on who covers the Packers on Wednesday. By then, Alex and I will have had time to go through the all 22 way too many times. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, thetterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you feel like donating to the show, you can go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button up right navigational bar. And also, if you'd like an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. For $25 for 1 calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of the site. Really good article this morning, Alex, on framing that Mike Tomlin quote and having some video to go along with it too. Also, I think you did a good job in the recap right after the game. I hate talking about a game without having to rewatch it, or without being able to rewatch it at least once. And
Same.
You have to, get that video up right away there without having to do so. So prop to you on that. So make sure you get to the YouTube machine and check those out, or they are up on SteelersDepot.com as well too. And thanks to all of our staff, tremendous job this past week getting people prepared as well too. Don't know what I would do without them. So within that, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.